Calvin Hexter. We're live. Thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here. Patrick.
So what is the phrase? The end is nigh in Edmonton and in Alberta real estate market. We're about to jam into a slump cycle. It's crashing. It's going to burn because we can see the future. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's kind of a clickbait kind of opening, but what's your thoughts? Tell me about Edmonton. Let's talk about Edmonton real estate. You're in it. You're in the trenches. Calvin Realty. This is what you do. You work with investors. And I want to talk about the housing market in general. Hold it. Let me get to plant this seed for you. Okay, here's the thought process. Right now, everybody's talking about, damn, housing prices have got to come down, affordability, my kids can't buy a property, and if you're not making $200,000 a year, you'll never be able to afford. I get all that, by the way, and I'm not making any of that wrong, and it's not that I disagree with it. It is really difficult to see a number of young couples, young people who literally cannot afford to buy a home, to the point where they're just going, I'm done. I don't want to buy one anyways. Like, they're justifying it and doing that. I'm going to touch base with it. So JG Francoeur and I, my partner, who we every 10 days or so, we do a Rein It In segment where we talk about the market. We're going to unpack it a little bit more next Friday at our Rein It In segment, but I want to talk about it. Here's what I think, Calvin, and then I think that we're only looking at one side of the equation. Everybody wants housing prices to come down. Get it. We can't, wages aren't going to come up to meet that. So everybody says, well, prices got to come down 30, 40, 50%, whatever the number is in their brain. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to come down. And here's why. I think people are missing the unintended consequences of a real estate market that comes off that much. Now, I've got 8 things. I'm only going to share a couple of them, and then everybody else can go think about it, do their own research. I'm going to drop that research next Friday. But here's a couple of things. You're in the business. You know this. Let's talk about Edmonton. Prices come down. They're going to drop 10%, 20%, whatever it is. What are municipal taxes based on? City taxes?
Their infrastructure.
Property values. Well, yeah, exactly. That's where they need the money. So I'm going to give you examples of the unintended consequences of house prices coming down because people are saying we need house prices to come down. Okay, let's talk about the unintended consequences, because on the surface, that seems like the right thing to do. It seems like the right thing to have happen, but there are unintended consequences. So I just open up the conversation with that one. City taxes are based on house values. So what happens if house values drop? Are they
expenses go down?
Are they going to change the math? What are they going to do? In other words, taxes go down, and they can't, because in every city, Edmonton not being an exception, they're already quasi broke most of the time. They're always leaning on either the provincial or wherever they can, the feds, to subsidize. So that's the first thing. Secondly, and I know that there's a lot of financing going on there. And so what happens to a bank that, we can talk Edmonton, we can talk Toronto, but let's just use a number because we're talking Vancouver, Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary. So let's say they financed a deal for Calvin or somebody else, one of your clients. They gave him $800,000 financing on $1 million home. Not a stretch in Vancouver and Toronto by any means. Okay, so now $800,000 on $1 million property that you bought 2 years ago. It's now worth $675,000. Okay, so think of the thousands of homes that are now on the books of the bank that is upside down, right? That's a problem, because now they're carrying a lot of really risky debt. And so
that's right.
So think about just that, those 2 things alone. Just think about that. And I'm going to do one more bonus. Think about the boomers, many, who have equity in their home that they are relying on for their future retirement, whether they refinance, sell, pull cash, whatever they're going to do. So I got 8 of those. Those are 3. And that's just those 3 reasons alone are, I think, enough to say, I don't think prices are going to come down. And I'm going to throw another bonus in there for this conversation, Calvin, and then I want you to talk to me. And the bonus conversation. Where was I going to go with it? Now I've lost the plot. So the point of it is that when we look at what's happening in the real estate market, we want prices to come down. There are unintended consequences. And I think the fallout from that is going to be very strong, because guess what? At the end of the day, politicians want to get reelected. So there's a huge cohort that's going, if prices come down, we're going to vote for you. But there's a lot of people, if prices come off and this is what happens, we're not going to vote for you. And I think that's something that we, absolutely do not want to step over. So these are all things. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, is
that an argument, or am I full of shit? Maybe I'm full of shit. What's your thoughts?
It's a tug of war match. I mean, you have one opposing force. You have a lot of first-time home buyers that are wanting to get into the market, that are sick of renting, that want to engage and build roots for their family. And then you have those that are selling the homes that want to get top dollar. And it's two opposing forces, two opposing goals. So it's, the win-win is, at the end of the day, in a real estate market, I don't want to say there's ever like a perfect real estate market, but not having major fluctuations, like in some of these larger markets where you see that's very, very stressful. It's stressful on both sides, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing I can speak about Edmonton, being here as long as I have and knowing the market as well as I do, is we don't usually see this. Our valleys are like Saskatchewan. So it's like, we're like the prairies where it's like, you just see a little bit of a dip, and then, we just continue.
Edmonton's the most affordable major city in the country.
And it's so consistent. And it's, and the consistency is really where a lot of people appreciate that, because they don't want to have the high risk. Think about the people, like you talked about, the boomers that are, a lot of them aren't set up for retirement. The pension plan's not going to be able to subsidize their living expenses. They are relying, in a lot of cases, on the biggest asset they own, which is typically their home. Most of them probably don't invest in real estate, might have some RSPs that get taxed like crazy. And they want to have a level of certainty, right? Especially with those. And there's a big transfer of wealth that we know is happening right now, that is happening this decade. And if we see those major fluctuations, it can literally wipe someone out. You're going to be seeing these senior citizens working at Tim Hortons just so they can get by and pay for their basic rent, and it's just, we don't want to see that. And I think a lot of people love Edmonton is because you just typically don't see, I don't think we're ever going to. And the Alberta, one thing we talk about, are we going to see prices down? I do think we're going to see a bit of softening, and we're seeing it right now. We're seeing
100%. Calvin, I'm telling you, you are going to see softening pricing for sure.
100%.
Okay, so when you're standing, on the street in Edmonton or at your home, just look south to Calgary and go, oh, look where Calgary went. We will follow. Edmonton will follow that. History doesn't necessarily repeat, but historically, Edmonton follows the path of Calgary, up and down. And right now, of course, Calgary is kind of in the middle of their slump cycle, and it may hang around there for a little while, and Edmonton will follow suit. It's just probably a year down the road. So anyways, that's my own thought process, but I don't think there's going to be a big crash in really anywhere in Canada off of 2022 highs. 100%. They're already way off. But in terms of detached, single family kind of properties, I just don't see it happening.
I completely agree.
I got 5 more reasons, by the way, but I'm not going to share them today. You got to watch next Friday.
I love it.
Shameless plug for the show. Shameless plug for the show.
And you want to show up to that, because you want to know the full reasonings and how it's going to affect you. And again, knowing that real estate is, some of our largest investments that we hold, it's good to be educated, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is your opportunity. So you definitely want to show up on Friday. When I see the market from Edmonton to Calgary in a comparison to my parents living on Edson, they live 2 hours west. A lot of storms that come through, they'll tell me, hey, Calvin, there's hail coming through. We just experienced it. It may not be as extreme as we experienced it, but it's coming through. And in the West End, you're going to feel it. Guess what? An hour and a half to 5 hours later, we get hit with something. It could be as intense, less intense. It could be almost identical. That's kind of Edmonton and Calgary. It doesn't mean it's to be a mirror synergistic reflection, because we know they tend to have a lot higher dips and valleys, the ebbs and flows of their market. We tend to be, a little bit like this. But it is, we do follow suit. And it's not just housing prices and how they fluctuate, but it's also the rental market as well, because we know that the rental market is tied to that. And there's just, it's a ripple effect, and it just takes a little bit longer to actually take into effect overall.
So there's a couple things, right? I have no attachment, as you know. I don't sell real estate. I love working with guys like you who are in the trenches, but I don't get paid. You're not paying me to sell real estate. That's not what I do. I have no attachment to it. You buy real estate, you invest in real estate, you don't have no attachment. I'm really only ever looking at what's going on economically, and I'm looking into the future. So that's it. So from a investor point of view, myself and for you who work extensively with real estate investors, our job is to look into the future. The problem is that the human psyche doesn't, we can't, I mean, we have the attention span of a goldfish right now, right? So in other words, when I talk about what's going to happen in a year from now or 18 months from now, people don't think about that. They're going, yeah, no, it's okay. Well, this is the real estate game. It's a slow game. You have to allow for those ebbs and flows that are going to happen over time within different cycles of what's going on. And it's not to say don't invest. It's to say, pay attention. What are you doing? How are you leveraging? What is your cash flow? Where do you see it? So for example, right now, when we talk about real estate investing, and I want to say you're hosting the REIcon event, Real Estate Investor Conference in Edmonton, September 6th, 7th. Is that correct?
6th and 7th. And we're actually opening up the 5th, which you're going to be a part of as well, which is called an Invest in Yourself ticket, which I'm really excited about. Such a great addition.
So you're going to learn a lot, lots of amazing speakers. You'll probably have 300 or 400 or 500 people in the room in Edmonton at a beautiful facility, JW Marriott, downtown Edmonton. I mean, it couldn't be a more or a better equipped venue and top notch. So I love it. And we're going to be there. So definitely we'll put stuff in the description and links below to join us at that event. So here's something that I want to also say. I think interest rates, we got to talk about interest rates. Everybody's saying they're not going to go down in 2025. They could be correct. I certainly have been really wrong about interest rates and certainly the timing of interest rates. But right now, I'm looking at interest rates. I'm not doing variable, by the way, and I've had to renew a couple, and I got lucky. I actually got a couple at 3.99. I went.
And you locked it in. You locked it in at 3.99.
I did.
Do you traditionally go fixed? Like 5 years ago, if I were to.
No, I usually go variable, but I went fixed. But you have to consider, my portfolio is 20 years old. I mean, I got mortgages, my loan to value is like 80%, like it's, so 20%, sorry, the other way around. So the point is these aren't big, but the point of all of this is I think rates are going to come down by the end of the year. I think they have to, because we start to see what's happening economically. Southern Ontario has a big impact across Canada. Alberta is doing quite well still, although it's struggling some unemployment. But most of that unemployment, by the way, is a result of so much immigration and not enough jobs to accommodate the immigration. So it's kind of a funny number that we have to look at. But I think rates are going to come down by the end of the year. Not a lot. I don't think they're going to drop 1%, but I think by the end of the year or early 2026, we're going to see a rate drop. And that will, in fact, also be what drives asset prices up. And that's kind of my view of it right now. I'm looking at it. And I'm talking about the equity market as well. So that's kind of my view of a little bit of what I'm seeing, in my thought process going forward. Now, let's talk about real estate investors specifically. Is there some great opportunities in Edmonton right now, or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, to be able to understand the opportunities is to understand the emotions and who you're dealing with. And the deals come from the sellers, because these are people or builders that are building it. And when it comes to build prices or lot value, but at the end of the day, value changes because of the sellers that hold on to the lots, the land, or the properties. And if they're willing to offer you a deal, something happens to them something would have had to happen to them emotionally to allow them to release the value of that asset at a lesser discount than what you're historically seeing in the previous quarters, right? And so let's talk about the emotional side of things, because I think a lot of times we just skim over it, but we don't actually understand like the psychological side of things. But as an investor, you should spend the time. It's like when you know the weather, you're going to know whether to bring an umbrella out or not, right? So when you're hearing about the market and it's softening, it's not like, okay, perfect, and then just glaze over. No, what does that actually mean? And if you actually understand it, you can ask the right questions and you can work with the right people that actually understand it as well, as opposed to just, again, nothing. So what's the reality of the market right now? Quarter 3, 4, and quarter 1 were busier than what we've seen in quarter 2, quarter 3. We are typically, historically, June and July are the busiest months in real estate, but we're seeing a slowdown in the busiest months of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So because we're seeing a slowdown in the busiest months of real estate, and we're seeing an increase on our inventory. So our days on market is increasing and our months of inventory is increasing. Typically, that's a good indication to me that property value will start to drop, because there's this, you're not seeing the multiple offers, you're seeing less urgency. So now prices have to get adjusted. The challenging part for most realtors is comprehending comparables in a contracting market, knowing that the sale prices from 2 weeks ago to a month ago to 2 months ago to 6 months ago, in which the window they typically are taught is not accurate. And so now they have to interpret what the pricing needs to be to get the activity that the sellers are expecting. And the sellers are expecting a level of activity based on everything that's around them. They're a satellite. What's CBC saying? What's their friend at, the friend that sold at the beginning of this year? Hey, Todd, I sold my house. It was 5 people offering. I went 50K over asking. Guess what? That person's now expecting the exact same result. But guess what? We're not the exact same market. Things have changed. So in a position now where we're seeing for sale signs come up on their lawn, and instead of sold stickers being slapped on within 29 days, we're now seeing 40 days, right? If it even sells at all. And the only way to sell is by being more attractive than your neighbor. And instead of 1.9 months of inventory and say 4,000 other sellers you're competing against, guess what? Now you have an extra 2,000 sellers that you're competing with to sell their home. So
are the signs going reduced? Are they having the sticker across reduced?
No, I mean, I wish I had a digital billboard where I could like send messages to like the neighborhood, and maybe that's a thing we'll do one day. But you don't see it as often as as you probably should. But no, that would be fantastic. So we are seeing, we're seeing a position right now where sellers like, what's going on? Based on the comps a year ago, 6 months ago, my property should be selling and for more. And now they're having to really take this, this haircut from where they felt like they were at to be able to sell. And I think we're going to see more properties that are pulled off the market in quarter 4 and go for the mulligan in 2026 than we've historically seen in the last 3 years, because sellers are not willing to accept the price that the market is willing to give them. And again, just understand, your property is only as valuable as much as someone's willing to pay for that asset, right? So how do you make your asset more valuable so then it sells? And it's all based on value. What is the property offering you based on the price and etc., right? Make your property the most valuable. But I do think we're going to see the largest bulk of properties pulled off the market. And for those sellers that can hold on to those properties, either because they're going to tenant it. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of these good properties that are renovated, that are ready to sell, with sellers aren't getting the prices that they want, tenant them. Those properties are not going to look the same next year. You and I know this, especially because a lot of these are, accidental landlords. Put these tenants in, these families of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in these houses. Guess what? You're going to depreciate the shit out of your property due to the activity in that property, worse than the market will ever do to you in Edmonton.
Yeah, it's going to get
and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So much stuff to unpack there. But
there is a lot to unpack in that. But I want to go back to something you said earlier, Calvin, just around the emotion of things, because when you start to look at how many decisions and investment are made emotionally, and we often and always say, take the emotion out of it, just look at data, look into the future, where are things going economically right now. I think, and Edmonton is the same as all markets, just varying degrees. But the emotion right now is a lot of people are just fearful of what's going on economically. They're finally seeing some headlines about what's going on in terms of the condo meltdown in Toronto or in Vancouver, and the softening market, and jobs are getting softer, and we don't know what's going on with tariffs, and Carney's busy. Trump's become the new fall guy for their 10 years of mismanagement. It's hard not to drop F-bombs in this conversation, but the point is there's lots of emotion behind it. And this is what you're suggesting. But I also think where some opportunities for investors live, which is I say it all the time. There's no bad time to invest in real estate. They're just the wrong strategy given what's going on economically. And so for investors right now, if they're patient in terms of willing to go through the process of negotiating and writing offers, I think there's opportunities out there, but you're in it. What are you seeing? What are you feeling like? What's going on?
With the sellers in the position that they're in right now, not certain of whether they're going to sell before winter, knowing that a lot of primary home buyers that tend to pay more money for properties than investors do are going to be starting to reduced, right? We're going to see less and less people in the market as we get closer, because possession day, know that buyers will stop shopping if their possession day lands in winter. It's not when winter starts, it's when possession day lands in winter. Just we have to understand the difference there as well.
Sure.
And so sellers are like in this uncertain state. And I can tell you, most sellers that are feeling the way they are right now, which isn't good, which isn't a great feeling, most of them will not adjust their list price, but they will accept a lower price. Okay, that's my biggest hint. We work with a ton of sellers. Like that's the bulk of our business, is we work with a ton of sellers. And the feeling is I want to stay strong, because they almost feel like it's a position of weakness when they have to adjust their price. It's somehow tied to their worth or value. Yeah. But no, a lot of them are going to and be willing to accept a lower price. And this is the opportunity to be more creative with your offers. This is where we see more creative finance deals, be established, is when we start to see shifting into the markets like a balanced, and especially into a buyer's market, because sellers are still hung up on prices that we saw in the middle of 2024, when we saw these records, right? A lot of them just get married to this price. They hear it in their head, whatever it is, they got an appraisal done. And so they'll do whatever it takes to get back there. And that's why you as a buyer use this opportunity to learn creative financing, how it might be able to help support your financing goals, maybe lower interest rates, whatever it is. But I mean, right now, average sale price to list price in our typical seller's market that we were seeing, 98.5%. When we start to see a shift, it's not uncommon to accomplish 94% or better of sale price to list price ratios. So do your math on what that looks like, whether it's $1 million, $400,000, or a $200,000 condo. Just know that there's more opportunities, and you just simply need to put the offer in that allows the deal to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, that seller might be coming knocking on your door. You find 3 properties, send 3 offers out, right? Get your realtor busy, get their admin busy, send the 3 offers out. At the very least, if they say no to each one of them, you never know when that realtor might come back and say, hey, you know what? Is your client still shopping? Because now my seller's now willing to accept that offer. Would they be open to a conversation? Boom, you just found yourself a smoking hot deal. And that's how deals can be created. Just one of the many ways.
Yeah. So perfect segue to talk a little bit more about REIcon. So the Real Estate Investor Conference coming up September 6th and 7th in Edmonton, and with some bells and whistles on the Friday. But having said that, I mean, you talk about kind of strategies and very, kind of advanced strategies. Those are some of the conversations you're going to be having at REIcon. Some of your speakers, you've got an all-star lineup of speakers. I'm honored to join you. I'll do an economic update or whatever else you've got me doing, but I'm happy to do that. But you've got some real experts that are going to be talking about, I think, agreements for sale or rent-own, or I don't know. What have you got going on? What other speakers are going to be there?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm most excited about is think about all the people that Patrick's involved in his life, right? Like let's take Patrick as this entity right now. So Patrick, for the better half of the last couple decades, real estate has kind of been like your universe, right? Would you say it's a big part of your universe, family, and you have everything else, right? Yep. So Patrick has the ability, or has had the ability to create some of the strongest relationships probably in Canadian and even North American real estate, where he's surrounding himself by people that truly know what they're doing, that are experienced, that are movers, shakers, and everything. Now, times Patrick and add, 3 or 4 other people that maybe don't have the same, because again, remember, Patrick's the grandfather of real estate. So his connections and contacts is going to be much more vast. His Rolodex of people will be greater than the average person, right? Even the top speakers that are there. But even like a half Patrick that's on stage, that just revolves around real estate 24/7, that has these coaching organizations of 13, 14, 1,500 people. They're literally satellites of information of learning what's working, what's not working. And they're going to share that with you. They're literally condensing decades full of information in real world time and telling you how to win based on that topic, whether it's residential, multifamily, infill development, creative strategy, JV partnerships. They are literally taking everything that they can grasp in that conversation and presenting it to you at REIcon. And that's the value of REIcon. That's the power of it.
There's a phrase that I like to use that, confidence is rarely owned. It's almost always borrowed. And for those investors who are maybe just getting started, or even those who have been along the journey but are starting to get a little bit nervous, put yourself into an environment of other like-minded individuals who are out doing things, learning, doing and getting deals done, and put yourself in that environment, in that kind of a culture of collaboration and of learning. And that's where you will gain some confidence. Now, that doesn't mean confidence to go out and just buy anything you see, but to gain the confidence through the knowledge and through seeing others who are taking action, doing deals, being savvy in how they do it, sophisticated in their way. And that's how you win this game. And that's where you gain the confidence to actually take action. I've been on this earth long enough to know that, and you've heard it too, Calvin, how many times have you talked to an investor when the market's in a boom cycle, everybody's being a genius, but there's always that person or those people that are going, yeah, I'm just going to wait for the market to slow down. Like, this is too crazy. I'm not paying those kind of prices. And then the market slows down and they go, no, it's going to crash. Like, I'm not getting into this mess. I'm going to wait. Mm-hmm. It's like, hold it. No, this is the time. This is the time when markets are starting to slow down, or they're in the middle of a slowdown, when they're in the middle of a slump. Mm-hmm. That's where you buy and do deals on real estate. So anyways, with the education and the right support, and that's what REIcon's all about. So I wanted to just shine a light on that. So what else do we need to know about real estate in Edmonton/Alberta? Oh, by the way, I'm a big fan of Red Deer. I keep looking at Red Deer and I'm going, something? I think Red Deer's got some stuff going on, but we digress. Okay. Yeah. What else do we need to know about Edmonton real estate market and REIcon?
Edmonton real estate market, you're exactly right. This is the opportunity to see and find the deals as a buyer. We know that, that's where you get ahead, is with purchasing with equity. This is your time to do that. Other things I can tell you about REIcon, we've created a deal tank, which I'm really excited about. So a lot of people want to know, how does Patrick actually analyze deals? Like I know, we can go through theory of all the things and all the tips that you provide, because you're not shy with giving away information, right? Like, that's what you do, is if you have something, you give it away.
I think that's why you've
been so successful.
I got to
right?
Share. Yeah. That's how I roll.
And imagine seeing Patrick be presented a deal from an investor, and then you can see the questions he asks in the order that he asks those questions, how he analyzes it, internalizes it, and can better understand whether it's a good deal. And now everybody sees deals differently, right? Like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I also feel like deals are in the eye of the beholder, right? So it depends on what your real estate goals are. But imagine if you were in a room where you could see not only Patrick, but 3 or 4 other top real estate investors across Canada and how they analyze deals. Ask yourself the question, could that change how you analyze deals? Mm-hmm. Is analyzing deals an essential part of being a real estate investor? And could it change the trajectory of your life by being able to quickly determine whether this is a good deal for you or not? Mm-hmm. Because we know how expensive a bad deal is. So what if you now are educated from numerous different deals, and there's going to be 3 or 4 different ones that we're going to be analyzing in front of the live audience with your participation. There's mm-hmm. going to be engagement from you as a live audience, but you can see how a group of these top investors actually analyze live deals. How valuable is that? And in addition to that, one thing we're also adding, not only the Friday, which is going to be exceptional because you're going to be, given the foundations of real estate investing, you're going to be able to reflect and understand, why are you investing in real estate? You're going to meet some of our top speakers, but you're also going to be set up with a concierge that's going to assist you throughout the weekend. So if you hear Patrick talking about turnkey, whatever it is, you can actually go in that concierge chat, and you're going to go ahead and have someone there at that weekend to be able to help support you. And so whether you're new to real estate, whether you're getting your feet back into it, or you just need that spark, you want to engage in that Friday session. The last thing that I'm really excited about that we're adding on this year, and there's actually a lot of things, is the workbook. I know the workbook, people are like, well, this freaking workbook, it's boring. Like, why do we have I'm not going to use it. It's just a paperweight, I'm going to toss it out, use it for a fire. This workbook is going to have residential performas, commercial performas, deal analyzer tools. It's going to have the desirability map on how to look at cities from A, B, C, D perspectives. There's going to be so many tools that you can take with you. Like alone, the tools that are going to be presented to each person that's showing up easily takes care of the price of the ticket without question. And I'm really excited to share that with everybody as well, is the actual tools that we use on a day-to-day basis for you to be successful. So you're not having to use these clunky tools online, trying to research the latest best. No. We got you. We're here to make your life easy. And I mean, the best thing about, what we do is we generally want to see you succeed. So when we have these meetings, it's like, how can we make sure that everyone in the room has the best experience and help them define the next step in their real estate journey? That's literally our conversation. And that's how this is all adopted forward, which I'm really excited about.
There's a phrase that we can end on, which is, I often use the phrase by Dr. Wayne Dyers, which is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's really important to shift perspective in order to shift perception. So whatever your perception is of the real estate market, if you want to shift that perception, or if you're wondering, am I living in some kind of, echo chamber or living in some bubble, you change your perspective by putting yourself in an environment where you see and hear other views of what you too are looking at, in this case, investment real estate. So change your perspective, change your perception, and maybe, you're coming in really bullish and then you leave, you're going, maybe I was living in an echo chamber or living in my bubble. Maybe I need to slow down. Or the other is that, I've been sitting on the sidelines and holy crap, am I ever missing opportunities? So that is setting yourself up for success by helping yourself change your perspective or get a new perspective so that you can assess what is the next move for you. Surround yourself with experts and people that really do and have a vested interest also in your success. So REIcon, September, links and descriptions are in there for the REIN community. Discount codes are in there. Calvin, I think I've covered it. And I don't know, any final words, or do we say goodbye?
That was awesome. That was great. I love hanging out with my friend Patrick.
Okay, my friend, we will catch up, and thanks everybody.